Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We will talk Indians and Browns with Matt Dery from 92.3 The Fan and the Dery Brothers Tribecast. A little bit later, we are going to start by talking Browns football with Terry Pluto from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Earlier today, though, Grant Delpit addressed the media for the first time, really, since he missed all of last year, his rookie season. Delpit says he's healthy. Let's take a listen to Grant Delpit.
This injury is like nothing I've had before. You know, it's a, you know, I never thought about my Achilles and, you know, what it really is used for until I heard it. So, you know, it's just an eye-opening experience for me. But I've done a lot to come back and rehab and just be where I'm at right now. Like you said, I'm doing sprinting, cutting, all that, and really just trying to, on the back end of my rehab now, just trying to get rid of that annoying pain. So, you know, it's coming along, and I should be, you know, ready by training camp. But, yeah, it's a crazy injury. It's crazy how it happened. But, you know, I'm glad that it happened while I'm young. I keep my mind very positive at all times. So, you know, with that being said, I just, you know, try to focus on the positives and, you know, not be stuck in the negative. You know, what happened to me, I always focus on how to get better and what's next. So, you know, when you focus on negative things, that's how you get down. I could have easily been depressed and all that, but I stay positive.
Grant Delpit, second-year Browns safety. Let's bring in Terry Pluto, columnist for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And Terry, you know that injury all too well. What about Grant Delpit coming back from an Achilles injury?
Well, I would rather have done it at his age. It's probably like 22 than I did it at the age of 39. But the big thing there with the Achilles is the rehab is very, very boring. You know, there's all these toe lifts and all this other stuff. It just goes out, and it's hard to rush it. Anytime you have any sort of, whether it's a knee injury or Achilles or any of this stuff, the younger you are, the better it is for you for recovery. As you said, you're not even sure how it happens, because most of the time it's not that somebody hits you or whatever. It's a wear and tear injury. I remember Dan Marino against the Browns blew his Achilles out. He just went back to pass and he crumpled to the ground. That was it. I was dribbling the ball up the court at a YMCA, and it just, I'll tell you one thing, you know, if something happens, you feel like somebody shot you in it or was stepped on the back of your heel. So I think, look, he's got the best medical care going. He's young, but he's going to find out that you have to watch your other Achilles, by the way. That is a common thing that happens. You hurt your other leg. I partially tore the other one. I had major surgery. I had like Tommy John surgery on the left one. It was such a mess. They had to, you know, do the ligament thing. So his apparently was not that bad. So that's good for that. Hey, this guy, you know, this is Andrew Berry's, you know, after Jedrick Wills, this was his guy. They believe he could come in and start right away. They believed he would be an impact player. And remember, while this team doesn't particularly like linebackers, because remember, when they take a linebacker, he's sort of like a safety anyway. They love safeties, and he's a safety.
Well, the other thing is you know, so Grant Delpit misses his entire rookie season. Yep. He addressed that he doesn't consider himself a rookie anymore, even though it'll be his first year in games.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a rookie anymore. Definitely a year two player, and I got to sit back and, you know, really study a lot of film and see what happens behind the scenes also. You know, watch the game from a fan's perspective, which I haven't been able to do my whole career. So that was cool to do. So definitely, I don't consider myself a rookie.
All right, Terry Pluto, what about that? Sitting, watching, studying.
Okay, there's
film.
a line, accurate but not true. Okay, accurate but not true. There was a famous NBA agent named Ron Grinker back in the old days, and that was the line he would used to do. Because I remember one time I called him up, did you really turn down like $4 million over 5 years for We'll Be Free, which is a lot of money then? And he said, accurate but not true. It was accurate, it was $5 million. But the truth was it was spread out over 14 years, not 4. So it's accurate in that, yes, he was, you know, he had a rookie season. And what he also said about watching film and just getting an idea of how the NFL works, that's accurate too. And that will be a help. But in terms of the truth, the real truth is out on the field. And when he finds out, how these guys hit, how fast they are, even when you play in the SEC, it's still a big jump up. Otherwise, Barcavius Mingo would have been all pro if it was just the same thing, or the other guys we've seen come in the first round from the SEC. So it's going to take a while for him. Fortunately, they signed John Johnson to be a safety. They have some other guys that they really like at that position. So it is an imperative that, he be the only one, but he's a big deal. But he's going to find out. He'll feel like a rookie some of those early games.
All right, so the Browns are going through OTAs. We have a voicemail of Truth and Reason talking about the Browns, the union, and off-season or optional team activities.
Hi, Dave. This is Ron Byer. Dave, I would like to call in today to give my opinion on a football topic. My whole working career, I was a union member, and I was extremely happy I had a force behind me to assist in wages, benefits, and assistance if needed. But when it comes to football and set practices and preseason team workouts, the union should back off from this. All players, young and old, should want to be there and participate. When your goal is to go and win the Super Bowl, it's a team goal to achieve, not a individual's like or dislike of practices.
All right, let's bring back in Terry Pluto. Terry, what do you make of that? Just your thoughts in hearing that?
Spoken more like a fan than a union guy. By that, I mean, and I was in the newspaper guild, for a zillion years until just recently when it disbanded. But part of the union thing is, working conditions, how much do you work, all that kind of stuff. Players really, for the most part, hated the OTAs in the spring. And they just thought that they weren't all that important, other than now for the rookies, yes, but for others. And then if you turn around and you look at what happened last year, and the remarkable thing to me last year is no OTAs, no preseason games. I thought the football would be trashed the first 6 weeks or so with all kinds of offsides and that kind of thing. And it wasn't that bad. Now, one thing they did do early in the year is they stopped with a lot of the holding calls and kind of that stuff away from the ball penalties that you would see. But in terms of the teams getting lined up and how they handled things, they were ready to go. I've always thought preseason games were overrated too. I guess they're down to 3. I would have 2 in a scrimmage. So now I think OTAs, it's like that's where you really can find out about some of your rookies and maybe second-year guys, undrafted free agents, that kind of thing that's important.
Let me ask you this. So the Browns are likely to do most of that virtually. Some of the other teams are going pretty much all in with veterans in there and a few holdouts. Does it put the teams that have fewer guys in person and more virtual at a disadvantage, or don't you necessarily think that's the case?
I just don't think it's a big deal. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Your real work is done in training camp. And a lot of things they discovered in terms of how you, quote unquote, put in the offense, what the guys learn, they are able to do a lot of that virtually now. So I think that it'll be key to see, when veteran camps start. And I mean, I think we all want to really see is, okay, what is the mindset of this team? Are they going to, buy into what Kevin Stefanski said, that last year doesn't mean a whole lot? Are they actually going to take seriously when he puts that graphic up on the board? And I believe it's almost exactly half of the teams over the previous 3 years that made the playoffs, then missed it the following year. In other words, they didn't go back to back. Going to get old scare tactics going to get them focused. That's going to be a key part of this.
Terry Pluto and I, columnist from cleveland.com as well as the Plain Dealer, we're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll ask Terry the question, is Baker Mayfield a system quarterback? We will also take a look at who might get contract extensions from the Browns before the season starts. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with cleveland.com and plain dealer columnist Terry Pluto. Terry, you hear it all the time, you know, Baker Mayfield is succeeding because he's in Kevin Stefanski's system. What do you make of that?
Number one, the good coaches create a system to make the quarterback look good. How about that? Let's start with that. Because it was just purely a system, then you could drop anybody into it and you would go to the playoffs. Now, I think some systems are, you know, more quote unquote quarterback friendly than others. Stefanski's system, you know, it comes out of the Shanahan school, where with a lot of running game and that behind it, that does help quarterbacks. But if that were the case, you know, the 49ers would not be shopping around for somebody to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. So you see that's the key thing. But Baker, Baker was able to get Stefanski to open things up the second half of the year as he grew in it. But the nice thing is it's a system, I think, that doesn't demand a ton from a quarterback to play okay. Because what really kills you in a lot of these games is bad quarterback play.
Well, and I think the other thing is we saw in Hugh Jackson's system and in Freddie Kitchen's system, you can't ask quarterbacks to do things they don't do well. That's a recipe. I mean, that's like running into a brick wall. Why would you do that?
And also, how did you build your team? I mean, it's pretty amazing when they finally said, all right, we got Andrew Berry here. What we really need to do is get some good offensive tackles. I mean, how much analytics do you need to come up with that? That's like number one. So they went out, they drafted Wills, and they got that right, moving a guy from from right tackle to left. Not easy to do. And they signed Conklin. They made him the highest paid offensive lineman in this past offseason. So that helped. And they already had a good center with Treader, and they had Batonio, and then they had gold with Wyatt Teller at the other guard. So that's if you want to run the ball or throw it, you got to block. And even if you look back when Sashi Brown was here, the first year he messed up where he let Schwartz walk. But the second year, he put a lot of money into Kevin Zeitler and Treader. They spent a lot of money in the offensive line because they figured out, that's a bad deal going. Now, if you're going to have your quarterback take these 6 and 7 step drops and, trying to fire it downfield like it's 1973, that's just not going to work. These players are too fast and everything. You have to have a lot of quick hitting passes, and, that's where the system works. But I feel good about where Baker is. And I think we should also too. It was a remarkable. I think it's something like, if you count the playoff game, from the interception he threw, where where Odell got hurt, until the end of the playoff run, I think he threw 20 touchdown passes compared to 3 interceptions.
Yep, and that's winning football. Well, the question becomes, what happens if Baker Mayfield gets banged up, gets hurt, can't play? Now, Chris Sims, a guy on NBC Sports, ranked the quarterbacks in the NFL from 1 to 40. He feels pretty good about the Browns' backup in the event that something happens to Baker. Let's listen to Chris Sims.
He is one of those guys where I look at to go, let's say Baker Mayfield got hurt in Week 10 this year.
In good shape.
He played well. You're in good shape. You can win the playoff. You can win playoff games. You can go to the Super Bowl with Case Keenum. That's no disrespect to Baker Mayfield, but Case Keenum is the perfect fit for a Cleveland team who's in the Super Bowl window, and he's a poor man's version of the starting quarterback, so they don't have to miss a beat.
Right.
That's really how I look at it.
Let's bring back in Terry Pluto. And Terry, that just speaks to me that the way they built this roster, they had some thought behind what they were doing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, remember, Stefanski was with Keenum in Minnesota. Keenum was the 3rd quarterback that year where he ended up playing a lot, and they went to the playoffs with him. The starter was Teddy Bridgewater. That was the year he blew out his knee in training camp. Then they went to, I knew I was going to miss his name. He played for Philadelphia, starting quarterback, number 1 pick in the draft in 2012. And this is a terrible thing, and I cannot think of his name, but we will later. So they went to him. He played a couple of games and he got hurt. So they went to Keenum, the number 3 guy. Stefanski was the quarterback coach during all of that. And so what he saw there was, I want a good backup quarterback. And that's why they gave, I think it was 3 years, $12 million to Keenum, because they knew he can get in there and they could win some games with him. Now, when Keenum went to Denver, he struggled, and he also struggled, I believe, at Washington after that. But in that system, for a short time, Keenum's really good. I'm glad they have him. I mean, we're getting a little spoiled here because Baker has not been hurt. And when you look at things in the past, quarterbacks, for the most part, they rarely play 16 games. So I know that's why Stefanski really, I think, insisted on Keenum when he took the job, is because what he had been through in Minnesota.
So when you look at guys that could potentially get contract extensions before the start of the season in this window, who do you think they take care of first, or who do you think they take care of? Let's leave it at that.
Well, you got your biggest one to figure out how this is going to play out is Nick Chubb, because Chubb is going to be unrestricted at the end of 2021 season. And usually when a player hits the market and he's unrestricted and he hasn't signed with his team, rarely does it go back to his team. I can't think of the last time. I'm not talking about Rashard Higgins or somebody like that who, has always been fighting for a job. I can't think of the last time the Browns had a notable player who became an unrestricted free agent and then re-signed with the Browns. So that's what you have to figure out. How much do you pay Chubb, or what? He should be actually number 1 on the list, because you have, you can't really, I guess you could franchise him. I'm not sure what that would be for a running back, how much that would be. That's a possibility. You could do that for a year. But, when they talk about Baker, but Baker's got a year left, and then he's got the 5th-year option. So he's got 2 years left on his contract. And frankly, if you have to start franchising him, you do. So those would be, the big 2. But I'm curious, we don't hear a lot about Chubb, but he's the one that really can walk after this year.
Yeah, and they're probably going to take care of him just based on all the things they say they value. Terry Pluto and I.
Although it's interesting, David, a little bit, because what if he wants 40 or 50 million like McCaffrey got, or some of these other guys got?
Yeah.
And what if they're thinking, okay, we love Chubb, but he did miss, I believe, 4 games this past year with a knee problem. And when he was at Georgia, he had a huge knee injury. And just that Chubb is so determined and so hardworking. He came back and seemed like it was nothing. But you do have that lingering back there in the shelf life on these guys. And part of the reason I think they did sign up that extension with Kareem Hunt last year was done quietly, but he's got 2 more years, is just in case Chubb walks, the price gets too high or whatnot.
Yeah, I would agree. The one thing about this front office, everything is kind of thought out. There are plan A, B, and C, and that's the thing good franchises have.
I love Chubb. We all do. I mean, it just – you talk about smart, tough, accountable. That's it. Show his picture.
Terry Pluto and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will look at Pro Football Focus ranking the tight ends. We'll see where the Browns' Austin Hooper ranks, and a second-year player that could be breaking out. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Plain Dealer and cleveland.com columnist Terry Pluto. Pro Football Focus has ranked the tight ends, and they ranked Travis Kelce from Kansas City 1, George Kittle 2. Rookie Kyle Pitts from Atlanta is 4th. And the Browns' Austin Hooper, the only one of their tight ends, ranked 17th. What do you make of Austin Hooper? Was last year a little bit of a disappointment, you think, from his production for the Browns?
All right, just so I feel better about it, by the way, Sam Bradford was the quarterback I was trying to think of that they went through in Minnesota, which, he's the number 1 pick in the draft. I just could not come up with it. So they went through Bridgewater, they went through Bradford, and then Case Keenum, who had just barely made the team, he was the one there. And then when you also look at the tight ends, I thought Hooper there would be more from him. I don't know exactly what was going on, why he didn't, catch more balls or whatnot. So we'll see there. There's David Njoku. I don't know, does he still want to be traded or what? I just haven't heard anything lately. But I mentioned that I thought Harrison Bryant could have a really a good second year when you talk about guys learning, because it is a tight end friendly system. He can catch the ball. I know I think he fumbled a couple times and they backed away from him slightly, but I'm upbeat on him.
Yeah, when you look at him, what do you like? Is it that he can run he can run a little bit? He appears to be.
Yeah, he's athletic. He's sort of like a basketball player, but the surprising thing was he could actually block some. They weren't sure about that, but his blocking turned out to be okay. So they could keep him on the field more. In general, taller tight ends, they're open. That's always the big thing. That's why the Browns moved from linebackers to safety to try to figure how to cover these more athletic tight ends. I just think that because they throw the ball a lot, to tight ends, that he would be more likely there. I've got more confidence in him long term than David Njoku, because I just don't know. It seems like from one time or another.
When you look at this roster, and there's no question it has been upgraded pretty significantly, what areas of the roster on the Browns, as it's currently constructed, are the biggest concerns for you when you look at that roster?
The secondary's got to show me they can play. I mean, they got a lot of new guys, but the thing where you end up, cornerbacks get hurt. I think Greedy Williams, basically, you should not count on Greedy Williams. And if he comes back and plays, great, you can give him a chance to start for that. But let's see if these other guys could beat him out. And because the 12 games he played as a rookie, exactly how good was he? I thought he was pretty mediocre. Denzel Ward plays 12 games a year. He misses 4. So, you're going to be looking at a variety of different combinations there. I just think that the secondary is big. You'd like to say, we kind of dwell, especially as old school guys, on linebackers, but really more is when you look at what's going on with in the secondary because of all the passing.
What about as far as having said that, it certainly appears like the Browns have upgraded this defense pretty considerably.
Sure. Yeah, they have. The safeties are better, and that could help in pass coverage. They also, I do think they're going to be okay at defensive tackle because with Billings coming back, and then also Malik Jackson should help them there. A big key will be Jadeveon Clowney. They're counting on this guy staying healthy, and they're counting on him, being able to make an impact. And they've talked about some of moving him inside, not just standing him on one corner and Myles Garrett on the other. They think they could switch around, do all kinds of tricky things. We're going to find out is whether Joe Woods is any good as a coordinator. Because last year it was hard to tell. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but certainly the defense was in the bottom half of about every notable category. And, he didn't have a lot to work with. It was thrown together. But I believe they're going to have probably 9 new starters. I think 8 of the top 10 players in terms of snaps played are gone.
When you look at this defense, do you think it's, and you kind of touched on it, does all the versatility allow them to do some things? You got guys that can play, as you mentioned, you can flip them around. Some can play safety. Some can play safety and linebacker.
Well, they call Malcolm Smith a linebacker, but he's sort of like a safety. JOK is a linebacker, but he's sort of like a safety. You have Taki's more of an old school linebacker you could put in there. I don't know what Mac Wilson's listed as a linebacker. He hasn't shown me much. Yes, they have guys, and on the defensive line, they can move them around. That's a new thing that they like to do. But we're just going to have to see what it looks like when they get out to play. Jadeveon Clowney, I was not big on the Clowney signing. I just wasn't. And I hope I'm wrong. And I know he missed 8 games last year, but then the previous, I think 4 years, he missed only 9 total. He played well when he was next to J.J. Watt, and when he wasn't, he didn't. Last year he played 8 games at Tennessee. I know sacks aren't everything, but he had 0. And he was on a 1-year contract. So I'm sure he was trying.
Terry Pluto, cleveland.com columnist, as well as columnist for The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, Terry and I will talk a little bit about Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sports for CLE. We are talking Browns football with Terry Pluto. We're going to get into some conversations about Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, the Browns head coach and general manager, who have gone about rebuilding this roster in the offseason, adding to the defense this year after they had rebuilt the offense, as we are reconnecting with Terry Pluto to talk a little bit more about the Browns and Kevin Stefanski. We had mentioned, Grant Delpit spoke to the media today, said that he is feeling good. His Achilles is on track to be ready for training camp out in Berea. Always a good sign, without question. And the Browns continue to go through organized team activities, some of them virtual, some of the guys out in Berea doing that as well. And we are again working to get in touch with Terry Pluto to continue our conversation about the Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will be back here on Sports for CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Now we continue talking Browns football with Terry Pluto. So, Terry, when you look at head coach Kevin Stefanski, what are the qualities that you see in him that you see in most good NFL coaches?
I think the most remarkable thing was how they won that playoff game without him and also without Bill Callahan. And if I remember, one or two other assistants weren't there too. Because it isn't job number one, but it's certainly among his top 10 jobs for a coach is how do you handle your assistants? Are they ready to go? So that you could do the big picture stuff. And another thing to keep in mind, remember, and I was very concerned about him calling plays, being a rookie head coach. There were very few problems with that either. They had that figured out and how to do it. With Alex Van Pelt, Alex Van Pelt called the plays in the championship game basically we call it the championship game, the first round of the playoffs with Pittsburgh. And if you remember, Stefanski was in his basement. So there you go. That was one. It showed that he got things organized and organized quickly. He doesn't seem to, when they've had the two big blowouts early in the year, one to Pittsburgh and one to Baltimore, they came back and won the next week. He didn't seem to panic on that. He was able to convince Baker Mayfield that, you can't just fire the ball over the place. That was the one thing, the system, if you want to call it, is that said, don't throw the ball to the other team. Now, this may sound kind of obvious, but Baker kind of be the gunslinger. And if I throw a couple interceptions, we're fine. But that does not play well with Stefanski, and he was able to get Baker to buy into that too.
Yeah, how impressed were you? Your first game as a head coach, Kevin Stefanski, they get blown out by the Ravens, and they come back and play pretty well in winning week 2. That was at that point in time, I was like, you might be onto something here.
Well, to me, you lose your first one where you're embarrassed in Baltimore. You won your next 4. You could not have scripted a better thing to happen to Stefanski after that opening game, because you're 4-1 now. You won a couple close games. There is a feeling of, okay, we're past the same old Browns. They didn't look as disorganized as Freddie Kitchen. There was a sense too that, Kevin knows what he's doing, and that he had prepared himself for this job for a long time. Now, he did take over a team with a fair amount of talent. He really did. Nonetheless, as we saw the year before with Freddie Kitchens, and we've seen here with others, you can mess it up. Instead, what he was able to do is lift it up. I mean, that's a key part of coaching. Do you mess up your talent, or do you lift up your talent? How do you get along with your assistants? He was able, think about this, to hire a really good coaching staff quickly, bring them into here, which is hard to do because a lot of assistants don't want to come here because they figure they're going to be here a year or two. And then when you go home and you talk to your family, oh, we're going to go to Cleveland. They go, oh, that would be good. One day, 1 week, 1 year, how long? We got kids for school, all that stuff. And then it turned out that the staff he had, they made no significant changes on it. Now, it's possible maybe some of these guys will go elsewhere. A big thing they did within 36 hours of Bill Callahan being let go as the interim coach in Washington, they were all over that guy to bring him in to be a mentor to Stefanski. They put his office next to Stefanski, and I heard they paid him a ton of money to come in here and be not only the offensive line guru, but to be the older hand to help Stefanski during this time. But nonetheless, the young coach has to be willing to listen to him, and obviously he does.
And then kind of dovetailing off of that, what does that tell you about Andrew Berry, and how impressed have you been with him as the general manager and the moves he's made? I
wrote a story a while ago, David, that Berry and Stefanski knew each other well before they worked together, and they at times in text kind of joked back and forth. This was when Stefanski didn't get the Browns job, and Berry went to Philadelphia as assistant GM. Hey, it would be great to work together. They didn't particularly think it would be Cleveland, but just during that process of interview and from elsewhere, they got to know each other. And while it isn't imperative that, you're friends with the GM or that, but remember, internal discord, we heard enough of that over the years, that these guys have a sense of being together in it, and they're looking at things the right way. And remember, behind the scenes, putting it together was Paul DePodesta. And I think this is, when they talk about the chief strategy officer, that's what he's supposed to be able to allow to do is, get the GM, get the coach. We heard all about alignment, that they have a same general approach on how you look at the team. You're always going to argue on the margins and different things. I mean, the Indians do that. I'm sure Francona has had some very, very heated arguments with Mike Chernoff and with Chris Antonetti, but they have an overall view of how the team ought to be. And that's why they've been together all these years, going back to 2013. That's what you want. Stability really shows. I just interviewed Ozzie Newsome. He's going to be part of my next kind of like, what was it like to get drafted by the Browns story? But I was thinking about it, and I think in the last 2 years, last 18 years, they've had like two coaches, Brian Billick and Harbaugh. And, Ozzie's run it now. He's sort of stepped aside, and his assistant, Eric DeCosta, is the main guy there. But Ozzie's like, president emeritus or something. And that's why they're good. Why are the Steelers good? 3 coaches in 5,000 years since the Stone Age. That is why they're good. Now, you have to make sure you get the right coaches and they can work with your front office. But it's a huge competitive advantage when you have stability.
Terry Pluto, columnist for The Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. As always, Terry, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Terry Pluto. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Matt Dery from 92.3 The Fan and the Dery Brothers Tribecast. We'll talk a little bit of Browns, a little bit of Indians when Sports4CLE continues. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. So Grant Delpit spoke to the media, and one of the things that he addressed was what he expects to see from himself this year.
Yeah, I have high expectations for myself. We have high expectations as a team, first of all. So, we have to prove that to ourselves. And me, I know what I could do. So just putting myself in the best position by knowing all positions and knowing the defense as well as I can, because the coaches are going to do the same. So that's all I can do. I'm ready to give the fans what they want and hopefully get on the field.
All right, Grant Delpit talking about what he expects to see. Let's welcome in Matt Dery from 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Matt, what do you make of it? How important is Grant Delpit to what the Browns want to do defensively this year?
You know, Dave, I think he's important, but I don't think we need to go crazy here thinking that a really now a bona fide rookie off an injury is going to become a Pro Bowl player. This defense had its issues last year. We know that. I'd rather talk about the guys that I think are proven players here. I know where they drafted Delpit over a year ago and how important he's going to be, but this idea that he has to come in and immediately star, I think that's putting a lot of pressure on the kid.
So the Bleacher Report came out with Browns players that have the most to prove in 2021. First on the list, Odell Beckham Jr. So Matt, what do you make of that? How much do you think Odell has to prove in 2021?
Oh, the fact that this football team won games without him last year put some pressure on him to not come in and upset the apple cart. I get that one. I do. I don't necessarily agree that Delpit should be on that list, but Beckham for sure. A high-priced veteran, making a lot of money, ranked by PFF pretty high going into next year, has to perform. The Browns offense did pretty well without him, but they need him. But it's interesting to see how well they did, even though he was not there. But boy, that offense, if everybody stays healthy, should be really, really good in 2021.
All right, number 2 on the list for the Bleacher Report with players the most approved for the Browns in 2021, Jadeveon Clowney. What do you make of that one?
I agree with that, Dave. I think this is a guy that is underachieved. Let's go back to his college career. Let's remember him in the bowl game blowing up Michigan running backs, and you're going, this is going to be the next star in this league on defense. He's had his moments. He's had some good games. He's had some decent seasons, but even Houston, Seattle, where he's been, he hasn't been that get it star. He has a very good agent because he's always getting paid. So it's there. But yes, having to prove something and getting to the quarterback and helping Myles Garrett and the rest of the guys along that D line, I think he should be number 1 on that list.
All right, and this one, we've already talked a little bit about him. Number 3 on that list is Grant Delpit. And I think part of the problem comes from, they drafted a safety. They have some other guys that they signed as veterans. Is there some time for Delpit to develop, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to, and he is important. But I think it's going to be putting a lot of pressure on him for fans to think that he and Greedy and some of the guys that haven't played to really come in and be these stars right away. Now, it's going to help that they're going to get a training camp. This isn't going to be like last year where you didn't have OTAs, everything was virtual, and players, especially young players, were very, very behind. Go back to last year's draft, and Jeff Okudah, the Ohio State Buckeye, who ended up in Detroit, picked 3rd in the draft, and he was not ready. Well, he didn't get any time to get ready. He wasn't on the field with his teammates. I'll tell you one guy I would put on that list, Dave, is Cody Parkey. If he starts the year off this year like he kind of was shaky at the end of last year, Browns will look for a new kicker. He has to perform.
Is there anybody else that you kind of are looking at and kind of saying, time to perform other than Cody Parkey?
Should I press the easy button and say Baker Mayfield?
That's where I was going with it.
I mean, right? I mean, contract year, new deal coming up soon, chance to kind of build off of last year. I don't think anybody's ever said that Baker Mayfield sucked or that he's been a bust. But last year, he quieted the doubters at the end of last season, of course, with some big-time victories, including the playoff game at night in Pittsburgh that bought him some time. But, of course, the quarterback position is always going to be that one that is going to be in the spotlight.
My sense is he's going to have a pretty big year. I honestly think being in the same system for the second year, being with Kevin Stefanski, Alex Van Pelt, I think that makes a huge difference. Just your opinion on what you think you'll see from Baker Mayfield.
Oh, I agree with you. It's time to take that next step. When you play behind, that tremendous offensive line, which hopefully will be healthy to start this season. Of course, it was banged up at the end of last year. The running game with 2 top 10 backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem, and then the receiving core and the tight ends. I mean, we're having Kevin Stefanski, and you mentioned Van Pelt. Boy, I mean, this offense should soar, and he really should do well, and I think he will. And he's maturing. He's growing up a little bit too, which is great to see.
Matt Dery from 92.3 The Fan and the Dery Brothers Tribecast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We shift our focus. We're talking Tribe when we return. Tristan McKenzie, sent down, comes back up. He'll get the start tonight. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We talk Indians baseball with Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast and 92.3 The Fan. So, Matt, we hear that Zach Plesac breaks his thumb taking off his shirt. Reminds me of the Bull Durham. Reminds me of the Bull Durham scene where it's like, do not punch a drunk with your pitching hand.
All right, Dave, let's talk about this, you and me. Do you believe that?
Man, I don't know. I'm having a tough. I'm kind of gullible, but I'm having a tough time with that one.
You're such a nice man. And I'm with you. I'm trying, but
yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
No, it's Zach creative.
Zach he's a young dude, and unfortunately, there's a history there. Yeah. When he went out and partied in Chicago last year and got banished home. So I don't, give Tito credit. He kept a straight face yesterday telling that story. I just have trying to believe it, but it's a hard time.
So what do you expect to get out of Tristan McKenzie? Now, keep in mind, you had the conversation with Tristan McKenzie telling him, we really think you should go down to AAA because we need you to get right so you can come up and help us win games. And now, because you've got a doubleheader coming up on, Monday against the White Sox, you got to call him back up and have him pitch. Then there's another spot in the rotation you have to fill. What do you hope to get if you're the Indians from Tristan McKenzie?
Well, speaking of immature, we talked about Zach Plesac. Tristan McKenzie's so young.
Yep.
And when you get sent down, you do have, I believe, 24 to 48 hours or whatever it is to report to where you're going. For example, when Andres Jimenez was sent down, I think he was out in Seattle, so he probably had to go back to Cleveland, get his stuff, go to Columbus, and he took a few days before he got there. As far as McKenzie goes, you'd figure, wow, I'm getting demoted. I was on this team last year. I was on the team to start the year. I'm going to head right to Columbus and hit the weight room. And instead, I'm seeing on my Twitter feed, he was spotted at an Akron game, hanging in the stands. He was at a Lake County game, hanging in the stands. It's like, that's sort of Bauer-esque. Then he finally got to Columbus, and now he's coming back because they need him, and it's an injury situation. I don't know what we're going to get tonight. I have no idea. I would hope that maybe it's like, hey, listen, I got demoted. I'm getting a second chance. So I'm going to put the ball close to the plate. He's not facing the White Sox. He's not facing the Yankees. This is the Tigers. They're not exactly 1 through 9 Miguel Cabrera from 10 years ago. It's Miguel Cabrera from now and a few others, Candelario and a few others that can hit. But otherwise, it's not a great lineup. We saw Savali last night dominate. Henches got through 5 the other night and probably should have given up a lot more runs than he did. But again, they swung and missed a lot. So I just hope that he takes it upon himself to go, look, they're sending me down after this game. Then I'll be the 27th man and likely pitch on Monday. But hopefully I'm going to make their decisions tough. And if I can get 2 good starts in here, maybe I'll stay. We'll have to see how this works out.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. The high strike works for him with swing and miss, but then he can't command the pitches where he needs to. It's got to be frustrating not only for him but for Tito and Carl Willis too, because the parts are there. If the young guy can put it together and learn how to pitch off of what he does so well, what do you do with this rotation? I mean, literally, you've now got 1 and 2, and then question mark, question mark, question mark.
Well, I was talking to my brother about this last night. Sam Henches now has to stay. Whether he's really performing or not, he's going to have to stay up here and figure it out. Then you're looking at, for example, so tonight McKenzie pitches. Friday, I'm assuming it's either going to be J.C. Mejia or Eli Morgan, but Morgan is scheduled to pitch tomorrow in Columbus. Curveball specialist that they like. Are they going to go out and trade for somebody or find somebody else? I doubt it. Scott Moss is hurt. The Cal Quantrill, do you stretch him out a little bit? And maybe start him in some bullpen games and get him back stretched out. I think he's an option. Those aren't terrible options, but it's a definite
there
struggle.
Isn't the one guy that you think the young guy, and Morgan, I think, missed a couple starts early in the year. And
right.
When you look at who's pitching well in Columbus, there's a guy, Kirk McCarty, 25 years old, has made 4 starts, 23 2/3 innings pitched, 7 earned runs is all he's given up. So it's a 2-point-something ERA, 2.66. Average against is 183. He's given up 3 home runs. That's a 25-year-old guy who before this year had never pitched above high A. That could be who you look to. Again, it's something that the Indians aren't used to doing. They're searching for what they're going to do with the starters, which ain't a great thing.
It's not. And can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. No, it's not. I think that, McCarty, I think would be the last option. Not that I don't think they feel I don't think they're as high on him as they were, that they are with Eli Morgan. Again, Quantrill nearly made the team out of spring training as the 5th starter and lost to Logan Allen. That's a name we haven't brought up either. Logan Allen has been a disaster at Columbus. So they're revamping everything with him. It kind of started with him as his struggles with what's going on. So McCarty, I think, would be an option, but I think he'd be after Morgan and after Mejia, if I had to guess.
All right. Matt Dery from the Dery Brothers Tribecast. As always, Matt, appreciate the time and the insight. I always enjoy talking Browns and Indians baseball with you. Matt Dery, 92.3 The Fan and the Dery Brothers Tribecast. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Dennis Maniloff and Cleveland State head basketball coach Dennis Gates. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Have a great night, everybody.